when it comes to the books that we have and the ahadith that we have, which narrations can we give taqdeem to? So he says, وَمِن ثَمَّ قُدِّمَ صَحِيحُ الْبُخَارِ ثُمَّ مُسْلِمٍ ثُمَّ شَرْطُهُمَا. Due to this, Bukhari has been placed first, followed by Muslim, then those ahadith that are in line with the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim, even if they're not actually mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim. So over here, Ibn Salah rahimahullah ta'ala, as Al-Iraqi says, وَأَرْفَعُ الصَّحِيحِ مَرْوِيُّهُمَا ثُمَّ الْبُخَارِيِّ فَمُسْلِمٍ فَمَا شَرْطَهُمَا حَوَى فَشَرْطَ الْجُعْفِ فَمُسْلِمٍ فَشَرْطَ غَيْرٍ يَكْفِي. The greatest level of authenticity are those ahadith that are transmitted by both Al-Bukhari and Muslim, meaning both Bukhari and Muslim vouch that these narrations are authentic. Thereafter, those narrations, for example, that are in line with the conditions of both Bukhari and Muslim, even if they don't actually narrate them in their books. Because Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, both of them, did not intend to narrate all of the authentic narrations. That was never the intent when they compiled the book. They were simply intending to narrate some. And so if we find other narrations that are in line with their conditions, then that would suggest that, according to them, they would be at the same level as the hadith they have in their books of Saheeh. But the fact that they didn't prefer to narrate them in their books is still enough for us to give taqdeem to the ones that are in their books. And then those ahadith that only Bukhari narrates, for example, and then those ahadith that only Muslim narrates, for example, and then those ahadith that are only upon the shart of Bukhari, for example, but have not been narrated, and those ahadith that are only upon the shart of Muslim, for example, and have not been narrated, and then you have other individuals that did tasheeh and tad'if as well, and you can rank them as well. طيب, this ranking is not min haythu tafsil. When we say min haythu tafsil, we are not trying to say every single hadith, and each and every single hadith in Bukhari is treated like this. Rather, this is min haythu al-jumla. And understanding it this way will remove a lot of the ishkalat, the objections that can possibly be raised. Because someone can ask, they can say, okay, you're saying that Bukhari, if he narrates a hadith in his book, that hadith will be considered greater than the hadith of Imam Muslim. Let's say there's a hadith Bukhari narrates, only Bukhari narrates. It's from the a hadith that Bukhari narrates, infarada bihi and Muslim. Imam Muslim doesn't narrate it. If you want to compare that to a narration that Imam Muslim narrated, but Bukhari didn't narrate it. According to this understanding, we would say that Bukhari's one is greater in authenticity. But that's not always the case. That's not always the case. Imam Bukhari in his Saheeh, he has certain narrations that some ulama have done kalam upon. Some ulama, later scholars of hadith, for example, have not accepted those narrations. There are very few, but they're still there. And Imam Muslim, in his work, he actually has a number of different narrations. So there's a difference between what Imam Muslim, for example, will bring initially in the bab, or what Imam Muslim brings, for example, for the purpose of ihtijaj, versus what Imam Muslim will narrate for the purpose of mutaba'ah, and as a supporting evidence. So in their works, sometimes Imam Muslim rahimahullah ta'ala will have a primary evidence for a certain matter, and then he'll bring supporting evidences. Now, his conditions in the supporting evidences are actually lower than the ones in the primary narrations. And this is evident. In fact, sometimes Imam Muslim rahimahullah ta'ala actually indicates and gives ishara towards ilal, mistakes in certain narrations. But he brings those narrations just to give an ishara, just to indicate towards a mistake, for example, being made. This is found in Sahih Muslim. So now, if you take, for example, the ahadith of Bukhari that are mutakallam fiha, regarding which ulama, for example, have said that these ahadith are questionable, some of them, very few, but some of them, and you compare them with the ahadith that Imam Muslim brings asalatan, yani Imam Muslim brings them as primary evidences, where Imam Muslim is feeling that this is the greatest level of sihha that's achieved in these narrations, then what's the difference? In that situation, we should not be saying that Bukhari's version or the hadith which was in Bukhari is actually stronger than the one in Muslim. Rather, the opposite, because Bukhari's hadith was not such that there was no one who did kalam upon it. There are scholars that have done kalam upon it. But that's not the case with Imam Muslim's narration. So sometimes that happens. At other times, for example, you'll find the situation where Imam Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala brings a rawi, a certain narrator, in his chain or in his Saheeh, but he does intiqa from the ahadith of that narrator. he actually chooses very selective narrations that he's willing to choose and narrate and bring in his Saheeh from that narrator. Sometimes he brings certain narrators mutaba'atan, only as supporting evidences as well. He doesn't bring them ihtijajan. Sometimes he'll bring a narrator ihtijajan, but it's for a very specific reason. He's willing to take that narration that makes him feel that most likely this was authentic. Now, if you compare those narrations with the accepted narrations of Sahih Muslim, then again you have a problem. Because most likely the ones in Sahih Muslim are going to be stronger. If you look at the awsaf, if we simply looked at the awsaf. And then there's a mistake which is sometimes made, which is just because Imam Bukhari brought a narrator, you also have to look how he brought the narrator. So for example, there might be a certain narrator, and he narrates from a certain rawi. When he narrates from that rawi, his narration can be trustworthy. So Imam Bukhari brings that narration, that version from that narrator. But the same narrator, if he was narrating from another rawi, or sometimes there are certain narrators, we say if they were to narrate from a certain rawi, or if there's certain types of narrators that narrate from them, then their ahadith are problematic.